Rabbi Menis Friedman. Hello, thank God it's Tuesday. And the topic is, it's a quick question, but a long answer, I'm sure. What happened to respect? Anywhere you look, there is a lack of. It doesn't matter who you are, king, ruler of the free world, a parent, a boss, or an employee or a child, there is no respect. It seems like there's such a lack of respect in our day and age. And I wanted to ask you, why is this happening? And is this process reversible?
Ooh. Well, it is a serious problem because according to recent statistics, what keeps a marriage together more than any other feature is respect. In fact, what keeps a marriage decent is respect. Without respect, it's inevitable that there will be abuse. You cannot be married without respect and not have abuse. It's guaranteed. If you have to live with each other and you don't respect each other, you're going to abuse each other. The only way that people can share a house, a life, a bedroom, is if they have a healthy respect for each other. Without that, it becomes criminal. Criminal.
Rabbi Friedman, you mean physical abuse, or abuse can come in different shapes and forms? Can we define abuse?
The abuse that seems to be the most painful under the circumstances. And sometimes emotional abuse is much worse than physical. Mental abuse. But it's inevitable. People who don't respect each other will rub each other the wrong way and feel justified, which makes it 10 times worse.
Rabbi Friedman,
so the lack of respect is definitely a problem.
Again, I'd like to still stop here on the word abuse, because just like everything else in this day and age, we are confusing things. We don't understand the real meaning of it. I mean, is abuse only when there's harsh words? Obviously, I'm not even going to talk about the physical aspect. That's actually pretty clear what physical abuse is. But emotional abuse, does it mean someone cursing somebody out, or does it come in the milder form? How do you identify it? Because that's pretty important, I think.
Let's just go with the definition of intent to hurt. You say something because you want to hurt the other person's feelings. That's abuse. And you feel justified doing it. Taking advantage of the other person's sensitivities, using their weakness against them. That's abuse.
Is there such a
and
thing?
It's forbidden.
Is there such a thing as unintentional abuse, verbal?
Yeah. And that can happen even in good marriages if it's unintentional. But once you realize it, you stop. Whereas with the intentional one, the more you see how painful it is, the more you want to do it. So the commandment is, you're not allowed to put a stumbling block in front of a blind person. If you're very cruel and you see a blind person, you put something that he's going to trip over in front of him just to see him fall. That's called taking advantage of someone's weakness and making him suffer for it. So your wife or your husband, you're trapped in this relationship. You have no place to escape. So you take advantage of it and cause pain. That's abuse. In whatever form it comes. So that's in marriage. Maybe we could justify a lack of respect in marriage because you're an adult and you should be behaving properly, and if you don't, you lose respect for him. But children have no respect for their parents. What's the excuse for that? Because the parents don't know what they're doing? What, and the child does? No respect for authority, no respect for the scholars, for the knowledgeable, for wisdom, for experience. We're told to respect an older person. For what? They've had more experience. So where did all that respect go? You can blame it on a number of things, but ultimately you have to get back to this philosophy in the West that there is no truth. There is no truth. Whatever you think, whatever you decide is true. Well, that's the beginning of the end. Nothing is true, nothing is real, nothing is serious, nothing is important, nothing is essential. So why would I have respect for somebody? Because they might be closer to the truth? There is no truth. So no matter who it is who has an opinion, it's your opinion. Who says I have to take it seriously? In other words, we have no way of measuring what deserves respect. It used to be, who's telling the truth? Who knows the truth? The prophet. Wow. Hey, they didn't get any respect either. But there was a reason to respect, because they know the truth. And you can't mess with the truth. But when there's no truth, so you have your opinion, I have mine. Now, hearing a teenage girl say, my mother doesn't know how to raise teenagers, so she shouldn't have had me. Who's in trouble here, the parent or the child?
The world.
Who's going to suffer more, the parent or the child? But the truth is, we never really cultivated respect. Of parents to children, children to parents. It wasn't necessary. You didn't have to respect your father. You just couldn't do anything without him. When I was growing up, I couldn't get on a bus, a city bus, when I was 8 years old. They wouldn't let me on. Go home, kid. So we couldn't do anything without our parents. So we had to be good. We had to beg our parents for a nickel to buy a candy. Used to cost 5 cents. Today, kids have credit cards. So it's not that we've lost respect. We're no longer dependent. And now we're realizing we have no respect. So, on a very simple level, who gets respect? Not in politics. In normal life. Who gets respect? Someone who speaks with confidence. If you speak with confidence, you sound like an authority. If you're the authority, people submit to your opinion. Any conversation, the one who speaks with more confidence wins the argument. We don't have much confidence anymore. Parents are not confident when they tell their children what to do. They're either indulging or frustrated and angry. They're not confident. We even developed this annoying way of speaking where every sentence sounds like a question. Every statement is made with the tone of a question. We're so not certain of anything. And so children who feel that their parents are unsure, of course they're not going to listen. Why don't you work it out, decide what you really want, and then get back to me, because in the meantime, you're not even saying anything.
Rabbi Friedman, can we speak a little bit about this generational respect, and not necessarily young children and their parents, but also grown children? From what I remember, everything my grandparents used to say to my parents, even when they were adults, were the law. Now, when I speak to my friends who have grown children, they feel like they're no longer respected. It seems like the children think they know better, they have a better approach to life, and the parents' knowledge, their experience really doesn't mean so much. They love their parents, but that level of respect that our parents had for their parents is no longer there.
Yeah. Let's make a distinction between admiration and respect. The Torah says that you must respect your parents. Does that mean you have to admire them? You can't demand admiration. By its very definition, admiration has to be earned. You do something admirable, you're admired. You didn't do anything special, why should you be admired? But respect is different. There's a respect that doesn't have to be earned. It's just decent to respect people, even ordinary people, just for being humans. Just common decency is a form of respect. That kind of respect, or the loss of that respect, can't be blamed on the one who is not being respected. In other words, you can't say, I don't respect my mother because she's stupid. No one asks you to admire her intelligence. Respect the fact that she's your mother. And she is your mother. There's not going to be anybody else. I think it works better the other way. Instead of talking about how bad it is to not respect, what would it look like if we had respect? How would the world be? How would life be if there was respect? How would it be if an old man is standing on a bus and a teenager gets up and gives him his seat? Would that make the world worse? Would that make anybody's life harder? So let's imagine there is respect for the elderly. It would make life so much more decent and meaningful. There was a man back in the 70s started what you could call as a men's movement in reaction to the women's movement. He came up with some very interesting observations. He said every man needs the blessings of an older man. When do you become a man? When an older man gives you approval. No one else can do it. Being admired by thousands of women does not make you a man. Because a woman can't make you a man. A bunch of young people admiring each other doesn't make you a man. Just makes you a gang. A gang member. Club member. The only one who can make you a man is an older man who has made it. In the 60s, we decided that anybody over 30 is irrelevant. So now men are not getting a blessing from an older man. He had these rallies where he'd gather men like in a sometimes even as big as a stadium. And he would talk about the problems of being a man. One day he said to a very large audience, "Is there anyone here over 60? Please raise your hand." A bunch of people raised their hand, and he said, "Could you please honor us by coming up front and sitting in the front line, on the front row?" A group of older men came and sat in the front. The speaker says, it changed the atmosphere in the room. There was something sane about that arrangement. Everybody felt better. So there's a certain kind of respect. It's not admiration. Admiration would be wonderful, but you have to earn admiration. And the Torah can't say everyone should admire their parents. That's not realistic. There are parents who are really not admirable. But that doesn't mean that you can stop respecting them. The same is true with the president. Maybe you don't admire him as a person, but the role that he plays, the position that he holds, or as they say in Yiddish, the chair that he sits on, demands respect. Somebody else will sit on that chair, you'll respect the other person. So imagine if people respected the elder. Imagine if children respected their parents. Would it not make for a more harmonious life? What if you tell your child to stop doing something annoying and he actually stops? Wouldn't that be nice? For everybody, including the child?
Rabbi Friedman, but then is respect enough to have a good relationship? Because that admiration factor used to be wonderful. I mean, my grandparents, of course they deserve, when I mean my grandparents, I mean all grandparents of that generation that survived the war, the Holocaust, and they're heroes. Of course they deserve admiration. It's a default because they saved their families. They saved the world, basically. So is that the reason why it was easy for our parents to respect their parents? And was that all that the relationship was built on? Because respect is good, but it's a little cold without some other factors.
Yeah. That's very true. Very true. There was a generation of heroes. Very easy to respect them because you admired them. But respect should not have that condition. Unless you're a hero, I don't respect you. That's not decent. Is motherhood heroic enough? Look who I'm asking.
I say
yes. I ask a mother.
I say yes.
But a sensitive child would find that heroic. How did you put up with me? In vitro and out of vitro. How did you put up with me? It's heroic. After that, it was all downhill. True. Once I grew up, I was nothing but a pain in the neck. But how did you put up with me that I actually made it through the teenage years and survived? Yeah, if we were really decent people, we would actually admire a mother for being a mother, not for being a genius. We would admire a couple. And in some way we do. You know, these comedians, part of their routine, they say, well, my wife and I have been married for 35 years. Everybody applauds. It's like, wow, what a... I don't know if that's good or bad, but there is. You know, you actually stayed married for 30 years. That's something to admire. So yes, where there is admiration, of course the respect is easy. You know, do something heroic, I'll respect you. Sure. That's not being a decent person. So, without being heroes, there's a certain respect that is simply indispensable. You can't live without it. People walking through a crowded room, bumping everybody they want to get around or past. You can't live like that. Eventually it becomes hitting everybody. Then it becomes shooting everybody. So no, there has to be a certain respect. But that comes with a decent amount of humility. I think the opposite of respect is arrogance. Disrespect is not the opposite of respect. It's the absence of respect. But what is the opposite? Arrogance. I don't need you. I'm fine without you, and so you're nothing. You're worthless. So if we had to track it down, I was just talking to a husband. Not a terrible guy, but he says, my wife did something and I told her. I said, who gives you the right to talk to your wife like that? Who gives you the right to talk to your wife like that? Like, who do you think you are? That arrogance, that assumption, when I'm right, I can say anything, I can do anything, Why? Who gives you the right? Who entitled you to talk down to your wife? In a decent society, we don't make that assumption. I'm not entitled to embarrass you in public. Why do I think I have a right to do that? Jordan Peterson was being interviewed by some reporter, or I don't know who she was, and she says, who gives you the right? She said to him, what gives you the right to tell people who want to be called by a certain pronoun? Who gives you the right to tell them that You're going to call them by some other pronoun and hurt their feelings. His answer was perfect. He said, who gives you the right to hurt my feelings in public in front of television by saying what you're saying just now? Why does everybody have the right to hurt everybody's feelings because you think you're right? That arrogant assumption, it's the end of respect. But let's get a little theological here. When the Tsar was killed, the last Tsar, Hasidim said, a pity. Not like they liked the Tsar. They suffered plenty from him. But this Chassid said, it's a pity. Because now when we refer to God as a king, we no longer know what that means. Because we have no idea what royalty is anymore. Anywhere in the world, the authority of a king is unknown. So the analogy in the Torah is lost on us. God is the King of Kings, so too bad for him. The admiration of parents is also gone. Now, 80 years later. So now to say, God is your father. Oh, yeah? Oh, great. Not exciting at all. Because what's a father? No, you should look up to God. He's your father. I don't look up to fathers. That's also gone. So now, how do we introduce God in a way that demands awe and respect? It looks like we have to really stop using metaphors and just respect God for being God. We have no other choice. You respect him for being God. What does that mean? What's a God? I mean, what adjective can we use? He's not your king, he's not your father. So Avinu Malkeinu has lost all meaning. Even in all the songs, our father, our king, it's like, what father, what king, who cares? The only thing left is God, the reason for which we exist. He's the reason for which we exist. A king was never the reason for which you exist. A father is not a reason for which you exist. So the awe of God is a much greater awe. So not having a metaphor is actually a blessing. Now we got to go to the highest level of respect. What am I respecting? The very reason for my existence. So what is God? God is the reason we exist. If you don't respect that, you don't respect yourself.
Rabbi Friedman, but do we even respect ourselves at this stage of the game?
Way too much. In an unhealthy way. And all of pop psychology actually encourages it. Love yourself, validate yourself, do it your way. It's only you. You're the only one who counts. Wow. What a disturbing message.
But is that respect?
Well, if you put yourself first, what would you call that?
Arrogance.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If you respect yourself arrogantly, that's why you don't respect anybody else. So the opposite of respect is arrogance, which means self-respect. My way is the only way. Why? Because it's my way. It's horrible. It's brainless, senseless, inexcusable. And yet it's encouraged by the so-called experts.
Rabbi Friedman, back to authority being respected. So we have a leader of the free world, President Trump. No one can argue with that. Pretty much the guy of the world. Had a bunch of friends who supported and respected him, such as Elon Musk and Tucker Carlson. All of a sudden, both of them publicly turn on him. That's public disrespect. How is it even possible? And nothing can be done about it in this day and age. I mean, in the times of kings, executions, certain, there were certain measures. And now there are absolutely no measures for public disrespect of top figures and, other Netanyahu disrespected heavily. So, and he is also in a position of authority. And there's so many other examples, but let's stick with Trump. Okay, how can this be? And where is this leading us? And how can it be stopped on a higher level, on our day-to-day level, and going forward?
And what's really scary about that is that's how you produce dictators. If the leader doesn't have the cooperation and support of the people, nothing happens. You become a helpless country. The only solution is someone should strong arm his way into power and make decisions for the people whether they like it or not. That's what we're seeing. We've had too liberal a government, and now people want some kind of responsibility, control, results, something. They're actually begging for a dictator. A return to communism. Because no decision, the inability to make a decision, is too scary. It's not safe to live under a government that cannot govern. Now, in America, it's not that dangerous. We're not in the middle of a war. But in Israel, you want to undermine the president or the prime minister while in the middle of a war? That's suicidal. Support the president until he succeeds in doing what needs to be done. Then if you still don't like him, have new elections. But not in the middle of a war. That's crazy. It's not people who want to do right by the country.
But it's not dangerous in America when powerful people, one is in media, one is in finance, those who were close all of a sudden turn on the person that they supported and President Trump, obviously, again, is the leader of the free world, to do this publicly, to embarrass him publicly.
Yeah, it's not decent, but it's not dangerous, because the worst thing is you'll impeach him and you have a new election. But impeach a president in the middle of a war? See, he's a lame duck president? What are you doing to the country? So in Israel, it's really dangerous.
Rabbi Friedman, is there a comeback from this state that we're in when there's a lack of respect all across the board, as we pretty much covered today in this conversation? Is there a comeback from this?
There's a reason that we keep going back to Mashiach. We need Mashiach now. What's going to happen when Mashiach comes? He will get the respect of the entire world, and therefore will be able to make decisions that will fix the world, because he'll have the cooperation of the world. That's like a primary description of Mashiach. Everyone will agree with him. Well, when you have that kind of consensus, you can make some very important decisions, changes, repair everything. So that's cosmic. Not just the cooperation of a country, or even of a group of allies. The whole world? If the whole world agreed, that's the kind of leadership that we can only dream of. But that's Mashiach. So maybe part of the process of coming to Mashiach is that all local authorities disappear and is replaced by a cosmic authority, global authority, divine authority. That's the silver lining. If no one respects their own president, we're going to end up respecting somebody bigger than the distinction of countries and races and religions. And when everyone can agree. Yeah. I don't know if anybody remembers, but there was a time when Henry Kissinger had the whole world's respect. Didn't last long. But he was the brilliant, the most smart guy running around all over the world, making everybody smarter. Everybody listened to him, unfortunately for Israel. But it was almost like, oh, so that's what Mashiach is going to be like. Not a president of any country, doesn't have an army, is not the richest guy in the world. He's just smart. And the whole world listens. He just wasn't that smart. The comedian who says, democracy is a great idea, because in democracy, the government is of the people, for the people, and by the people. Isn't that great? Yeah, but what if all the people are just plain stupid? What are you going to end up with then, right? So, Mashiach is really the solution.
Rabbi Friedman, I just wanted to say that not too many people know, but Henry Kissinger was one of the 3 founders of the World Economic Forum. And World Economic Forum, I think, kind of is the false Mashiach, as we call it in the Torah. They pretend to be that solution for the world, which is exactly, unfortunately, is the opposite. And Henry Kissinger was one of the one of the three founders of it. So I don't know.
He also gave Israel very bad advice in the Yom Kippur War.
Yeah.
Disastrous. So, realistically speaking now, Mashiach is the solution. We need one person who actually knows the truth. And to the truth, everyone agrees. So we're headed in that direction.
And nothing else can save us, pretty much. Doesn't look like it.
Well, in our own little lives, where we are in control, yeah, we can be more respectful. We can stop talking down to each other in marriage. We can stop abusing each other out of just decency. And we really should.
Absolutely. Rabbi Friedman, thank you so much. This was a very important conversation and very, very much needed in our times, because where we have absolute lack of respect all across the board. I hope people realize it, pay attention to it, and do something about it, at least, like you said, in places they have control over. Rabbi Friedman, thank you so much for your time, for your wisdom, and for everything you do for everybody on daily and not even daily, hourly. Looking forward to more of your wisdom in next week, I hope. Thank you so much.
People should respect what you're doing. They really should. Everyone should ask themselves, Russian radio is making the world a better place. What am I doing to make the world a better place?
God willing.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And till next week, all the best.